Excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the July Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge, and I am chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. We've got a relatively full agenda. It's my goal to get everyone out of here on time, or at least at a decent time this evening, since we are starting a little bit late. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This will ensure that commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you're called upon. When you speak at the podium up here, please state your name and address for the record. Before the commission votes on each item, we will ask if any of the members of the public wish to speak. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also be mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along online, select Agenda on the right-hand side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see which items are being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission, so if you brought new materials that you want us to review, please keep them at your seat, as we cannot accept and review. There's just simply not enough time. So repeat that again. We will not accept new information if you're bringing it to the commission today other than kind of verbal voice-to-voice communications. Keith, can you please call roll?
Fudge.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Gaines.
Present.
Milner.
Present.
Poor.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Wood.
Present.
Thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted on the agenda. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the process, we would direct you to that particular section. There are 2 items we do like to note specifically regarding the meeting process. These involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Specifically regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying the certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. And that will take us on to item number 2. Katie, what news do we have from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer? Anything?
I have no news
Okay.
this afternoon.
No news. Excellent. No news is good news. We'll go ahead and move on to acceptance of the minutes. Look around the horseshoe up here. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the June meeting minutes. Any requests to modify, any motions, anything that we need to do with the minutes? And if not, do we have a motion to approve?
I will motion to approve the June meeting minutes.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Gaines, your vote, please.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. The motion was passed unanimously. 7, with Remy abstaining, or is he just not here today? He's not here. Okay. Let's see. Katie, what do we have from code enforcement?
Nothing in particular to report. As always, if you all have questions about any of the items listed in the code enforcement report, you are welcome to reach out to staff for more information or to contact the Action Center.
Thank you. Any continuance announcements or new requests on that side?
We have one uncontested request for continuance. This is HPCA 23-32. They'd like to be continued to the September 6th meeting. So we do need a motion and a vote on that.
Okay. Do we have a motion to move that particular meeting? Or move that particular item?
I will motion to move HPCA 23-00032 to the September meeting.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov. That motion passes unanimously. Let's see, Katie, we're in the public hearing section. Anything under dilapidated structures?
Nothing to,
Did I miss that? No.
we have no new requests.
No
Is
new
that what
requests.
you're,
Perfect.
And then under dilapidated structures, none, and National Register nominations, none.
Okay. Looks like we've got 3 items on the consent docket today. I believe we did have a resident ask that we pull item number 3, HPCA 23-00063. Is that correct?
That is my understanding that that's the one they wanted to discuss. So
Okay.
if that resident is present and wants to speak, yeah, we'll
Excellent.
clarify what that concern was.
Please state your name and address at the podium and talk to us about what's going on.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. My name is Blake Owen. I've owned the property at 615 Northwest 25th Street. It's the big blue house that you see there. I've been there since, I think, August 2016. I also own another property just across the street at 612 Northwest 25th Street. And for what it's worth, I'm also on the leadership committee with the Paseo Neighborhood Association. And I also just ran from my car to get there, so I'm trying to catch my breath just a little bit. One of the things I wanted to comment on is, well, first and foremost, I'm generally a proponent for development. By and large, I'm a big fan of something happening with this corner. I have a few concerns around the amount of curb cuts that's being proposed here with the 2 lots. I'm also concerned with preserving the benched hill there in the front, which is consistent along that entire north side of the street. And then there's already a ton of on-street parking there just because it's a super dense area. There's no parking allowed along Dewey Avenue. So those are just a few things that I wanted to reiterate here as considerations that I think are really important. But now if I put my homeowner hat on, and having that house at 615, there's a tree there directly on the property line. Yeah, that's it right there. We really rely on that tree for the only source of shade throughout the entire day from dawn when the sun comes up till maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. It's an original 1912 house, original windows. My big concern there is, as it's proposed today, a driveway is suggested that will be cut right there along the property line. And the site plan looks like it goes literally right up next to the property line. My big fear with, I don't know if we have any arborists or anything like that available today, but my big fear there is we could very well potentially damage that tree. And I think there's some guidelines listed there, but I can read it for the group here. So for driveways, we want to locate new driveways and sidewalks so that the topography of the building site and significant landscape features, such as mature trees, are retained. We want to protect those mature trees and other significant landscape features from direct construction damage and from delayed damage, such as destruction of root area, of soil compaction, by not permitting construction equipment access to the ground area underneath the tree canopy. So I think this was one that was on the consent docket that staff had recommended to approve, but I think it's worthy of additional consideration. I would suggest maybe getting an unbiased opinion from an arborist to see if that tree can somehow be preserved. But that's what I wanted to bring to the attention of the team here, and hopefully get some additional feedback, either from the developer or the property owner that's planning the development. Any questions for me?
My question was for the applicant, if Fallon is here, just kind of wanting to get clarity. I would have sworn I saw her walk in.
Oh,
Okay, I
sorry,
just
sorry.
wanted to get clarity on whether, because I appreciate the citation of the guidelines specifically, and I agree, I'm always a big proponent of keeping the trees, and that's kind of something that I bring up a lot. And we talk a lot about with 2-story garages as well, and 2-story additions, how it impacts a neighbor's shade and their use of their space. So I totally think it's worth considering, and wanted to see what Fallon had to say about whether it, should present an issue or whether she's had that investigated.
Yeah, and just one other thing I failed to mention is, in the staff report, there was mention of 3 trees being removed, but in the site plan itself, I could only see 2 trees that had been documented as proposed. So it'd be great to at least identify
Okay.
what that 3rd tree is as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't know that I got moved.
So we went ahead and pulled item number 3. There was concerns with curb cuts, the bench hill, and tree removal as well. Specifically, the tree that's on the property line here, right at the edge, and wondering if that's, I think this may be my own words, but is it possible to save that tree? And can you give us some feedback as to, what the plan is for the trees and the curb cuts and the bench hill, or the rolling hill?
Okay, well, I wasn't prepared
We're
to.
quite prepared, and that's fair.
Sorry.
Take some time.
Fallon Brooks Magnus, 733 Northwest 22nd, representing the applicant. So the tree that's on the property line over here on the west side, it's on their property line. I can't imagine that we're gonna dig in over there. We might be kind of close to the roots though. So I feel like we're gonna have to play that one by ear. I'm not entirely sure what to do about it, because that's one of those things that I didn't document it because it's not on the property, and I guess we just missed it. So that might be one of those things that we have to evaluate in the field. And then the one on the other side, as long as it's not within the setback, we should be able to save it, if you're talking about on Dewey.
So I think we were talking about on 25th, on the bottom left of that screen.
Yes, that one right there that the cursor is over, that's on the property line. That's the one that, because it wasn't on our property,
Right.
it didn't get added to the plan set, so I'm not entirely sure
Yeah.
what to do about it. It's one of those things we're gonna have to evaluate when we go out to cut the curb and do all that. I mean, I would imagine that we're gonna be a few feet away from it, but I don't know entirely what's gonna happen with that.
So Katie, question that I've got is, what happens if somebody digs in and destroys the roots of somebody else's tree and the tree dies in their yard? I mean, how do we deal with something like that? I don't know that that's come up during my tenure.
I'm going to ask Rita.
Okay,
How we deal with
Rita?
that.
That is a private civil matter.
Okay.
Private matter?
A private civil matter if a tree is damaged by, if one person's tree is damaged by another person. As far as what you're saying about it being on the property line, if you did damage the root, then you might still be in that situation where the person could have a court determine that you were liable for the damage to their tree. But if it's all on your property, then it goes back to the guidelines and the recommendations that are contained in those guidelines. So it might be a conversation you want to have.
Yeah, I think, when you said it had not been fielded yet, I do think it would dramatically impact his front yard topography, so I think it certainly should be fielded before we move forward with any approval on a driveway. I mean, I know we talked about the driveway a lot last month, and I heard your concerns loud and clear over how creative you had to get with the space in order to make that work, but I would personally be pretty upset if somebody took out a really large mature tree from my front yard.
Absolutely, I agree. I just, we've had a lot of concerns from neighbors, and we've answered a lot of
Yeah.
questions that I just don't know how this
I
one
know
got
you're, like,
completely
at the
overlooked
99
by
yard
not
line,
only
yeah.
us, but the neighbors
1
as
yard
well,
line.
like, just kind of annoying, so.
Yeah.
Fine.
I think, I'm just trying to think if there's a way to approve with a condition that adequately addresses the concern about, because technically the tree is not on this property, so we can't really require them to do something to a feature that's not on their property. Trying to think of a feasible way forward without holding off another month, but
So is the tree on the property line or on the other side of the
It's
property?
like just ever so slightly on their side.
But if it's on the property line, then you guys share the tree.
Looks like it's,
If we were to estimate, I'd say like 75% of the trunk is on my side, and the other 25% is on their side.
Right.
But I think like the real concern is,
Sir, can you come up to the podium again, so make sure we hear you?
the real concern is if you think about a tree, and I'm not gonna claim to be a professional arborist, but the tree roots can go out as far as the canopy itself.
Sure.
The canopy is gonna cover over that 10-foot driveway that's being proposed there. And so, I mean, we can assume very confidently that there's gonna be damage to that tree if the driveway moves forward. in that location. And, further, I think if we move forward, that directly contradicts the guidelines that we have there around new driveways. And I think this is a perfect example of why that guideline is in there, to preserve those trees that are historic in nature to the neighborhood, to the landscape and otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think if we're saying that even 25% of the tree is on the property, I hate to do this to you after so many rounds, but I personally feel that is a guideline, and if you're saying it is somewhat on your property, then I think the guideline applies, and if it's not on your property, then I think it's a pretty direct impact to your neighbor's property. And that is, kind of the danger with, I don't want to say overbuilding, but, really putting as much as is feasibly possible on sites is like when we have to start getting this creative about the solutions. I don't know, it feels like an uphill battle to get that much on the site plan.
You think I haven't had that conversation with my client? Sorry. Yeah, I don't know what you guys want to do. This is not.
I mean, is this
Sorry.
something we can approve with conditions, state that they take every effort to maintain that the tree stays in good shape and they don't damage the roots, and if you need to adjust the driveway or the curb cut by a couple of feet, then we do that. Like, is there any path to it?
I
to
think
doing
the
that,
really
rather than
hard
pushing
thing
her a full month?
about trees is if it is damaged, it may still live for 3 or 4 or 5 years, but at some point it may become detrimental to the health of the tree, and that's when it dies. But how do you actually point that back to that
Right.
was done because of this? Like, I mean, they can survive for quite a while, but maybe eventually it could possibly. And I don't know how you really hold or tie it back 100% to that. I mean, I just think about trees that are on the middle of a property line and the limbs that overhang. The neighbor that has the limbs overhanging has every right to cut all of those limbs down on a tree. So I'm kind of struggle, like I obviously am a big supporter of trying to preserve the tree, but I don't really know how much action I feel like we can truly take to protect it. I mean, the site itself looks pretty constrained, the property line. It's not like they could have done a whole lot of different configuration on the site from a quick assessment. I don't know, I struggle.
I think an approval with conditions is probably the only route to go, since it's, that every effort will be taken to protect the tree and the root system. And
My concern is that any language we come up with in a condition is going to be pretty loose and subjective. I mean, none of us are, to his point, we're not arborists, we're not landscapers or landscape architects. I
do
don't,
have a degree in landscape architecture.
fine, you make the condition.
I don't think we can stop the project from proceeding, but I don't think we can stop because of that reason either, if I'm saying that right. We shouldn't stop this project from going on, but I don't know that there's anything we can do to slow the,
I don't
to
know that
stop
I
this
would be in
issue.
favor of an approval, but that's okay. But just, I would encourage you to make every effort to communicate with the neighbor and to truly do due diligence and in good faith try to make sure the tree stays healthy and survives the driveway.
But
And
then
don't take your
also-
25% of the limbs.
I mean, but the owner of the home, 3 months after living in there, if it's on the property line, can come in and cut everything down, straight down on the property line.
Earth to sky.
Yeah, I mean, that's, so
It's unlikely though, that somebody would, I mean, visually, that's really
it's,
unappealing.
but I'm saying, that's where we run into an issue here. We're getting into legal issues when we're talking about that, when we're talking about trees being on property lines and trying to protect something that legally the owner of the property has every right to do with what is on their side of the property, whatever they want to do. That's the law.
I see it as the homeowner has made the case, and I'm on record that this is their concern. The developer has also said we're going to do everything we can. I think we've got to approve as is. I would support an approval as is, noting the neighbor's concerns, and if it kills your tree, like Rita said, you've got a civil action to pursue. And that, to me, that should be shared with the applicant and let them make the decision as to where they want to put that cut. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I can ask a question. Are there any guidelines?
Just, can you come to
Come
the?
back up to the microphone, please.
Maybe a question for Katie. Are there any guidelines that relate to like how close a driveway can be to a property line?
If the curb cut crosses the property line, they have to get a cross-access agreement. But we don't have a guideline that specifically says can be no more than this distance. And we have lots of historic driveways that sit on the property line.
You're right
Yeah.
up to it. Okay.
So is it a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA-23-00063.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Wood, second by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov. Motion passes by a count of 6-1. Thank you. Okay, I think we need a motion to approve the other items of the consent docket now?
Yes.
And does anybody else want to pull anything in the consent docket first? Any other citizens that wish to be heard on the consent docket? Excellent. Do we have a motion to
I'll move
approve?
approval of the consent docket, items number 1 and 2.
Moved by Commissioner Gaines. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Poore. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Milner, what's your vote, please? Your vote, please. Yes.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
thank you.
That motion carries by a count of 7-1. If you're on the consent docket, congrats, your project is approved. Oh, that's Remy, isn't it? That motion's passed unanimously. Okay, if you're on the consent docket, your project was approved. You've got the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting, or you can head out now. We will move into the cases for individual consideration. We've got 8 on the docket today, starting with HPCA 22-00170 at 1607 Classen Drive.
This is in Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Behold Inc. for Luke or Kristen Rebinich for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage elective, and 2, construct 1.5-story garage elective. This is the third time for the commission to see this application. They have no continuances remaining at this point. The staff report has recommended approval for the demolition of the garage. We've recommended approval of that item continuously through the process based on the amount of alteration that has already been made to the garage and issues with the condition that the applicant has documented. We have recommended denial on the construction of the 1.5-story garage based on factors including the size exceeding what is supported by the guidelines, the increase in the height, and a roof form that is not consistent with the historic garage roof form. And the applicant's present if you all have questions.
Perfect. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
I'm John Beeden. I live at 1135 Northwest 39th Street.
Okay. I missed the last couple of iterations of this particular discussion, but talk to us about what you've changed and modified to get us to this point today.
During the last meeting, it was, I think I had offered the option was given, maybe we should look at a 1.5-story garage, so I did that. And I found, with a lot of difficulty, Angela sent me the requirements in the code that show what the 1.5-story is and what where the walls should be and percentage of floor plan versus the first floor, I guess, yeah.
And you've modified that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I redrew a garage with a 1.5-story garage with usable space upstairs. The footprint the same as the original drawing, which was 3 or 4 drawings ago. The width added we had discussed was to put, if we put stairs on it, that would be on the outside to make it to the half-story. That the additional movement of the footprint to the west was to incorporate the stairwell that would go up there.
Okay. So
The issues that were brought up that I understand about massing, I think that when we're talking about massing, we are talking about the garage size, and I assume that's the garage size versus the garages around it and the primary structure. So this garage is taller than the garages on either side of it. It is primarily because of the house is also taller. I've designed what I think follows the shape. Well, let me put it this way. I think that the garages on either side and in this neighborhood and all around here are really just a mimic or a scaled down or smaller version of the primary structure. That's very evident here. I believe there is, if you go, how many more drawings are you? If you go to one more, there, one more. I think one more. So of the garage itself. No, and then one more. Sorry. Yeah. No, one more. Hopefully. There, right there. So see the garage next door to the left in the image, right? The garage is currently slightly taller than the garage next door, but the garage next door is a mimicry and a smaller image of the house itself, and it has a flat roof, right? The house on the other side, and I don't know if that's captured, its roof line follows the same pattern as the house itself. Let's see. Nope. That's not how it's going to go.
were there specific questions from commission that we asked of the applicant to bring back or to look at or to talk through previously? So again, this is one of my first times seeing this, but as I looked at it, I didn't, well, first of all, I'm not a proponent of garages that are massively oversized and what I would coin as garage mahal. I don't see this one in particular being as garage mahalish as we've seen in the past, to use my own term there. I've been in that area a gazillion times. There's a ton of two-story garages back tucked away in there. But there are certainly some challenges with where the dormers are located and the fact that you are oversized. I think the problem is that we're coming in on our third continuance here.
Right.
But all that to say, I didn't see anything in it that's like insulting or so far outside the norms other than some of the dormers and the visibility there. I'm not necessarily opposed to a 1.5-story garage, but I don't love the fact that it's over height and all of that as is, but I'm curious what questions we might have as well.
And that's where I think I'm talking about in the massing of it, right? If you look at the elevations, did you guys have the drawings of the new proposed garage too?
They are not in the PowerPoint, but they all have them at their seats
So
here.
it's the west elevation, and it shows my ridge height at 20 foot 2 3/4 inches. The massing that we're talking about, like on the primary structure, is the roof pitch is a 12-12, which makes it taller. And I think that could easily have been mimicked to try and bring the overall height down and keep it behind the porch here on the side and keep it tucked under where visually you won't see it, right? I made sure that it was underneath the ridge line of the side porch as well. Again, this is the best picture of it because that's the most that you see of the garage. Anyway, so I lowered the pitch on the garage to an 8-12. All of that trying to keep it in that height. Also, that picture is good too, because this house does have the dormers in the roof line. So,
I have a question for staff. In the staff report, it's noted as it gets proposed as a 1.5-story garage, and then the recommendation listed as a 2-story. So I just wanted to get clarity on how we were supposed to be treating this.
It is a 1.5-story. They've met the criteria for that, and I think that's probably just a typo carrying over from one staff report to the next.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know what the existing pitch is of the garage that's standing right now?
I can estimate it, but it's
I mean, it's not 8 to
probably,
12.
it's probably 3.
Right.
The minimum it can be 4. I will say too that, and this image is good for that too, the appearance is also that it has been, the roof is altered from its original state. As you can see, the siding above the brick in the, on the gable end, right? And that siding goes long behind the tree here. You see the big brick on the fence, right? The wood fence meets the siding. The garage had been, the footprint of the garage has been extended before, and that siding, and I believe that at that point too, the roof was altered. I don't know what it was. It may have been steeper. It could have also been flat, but it has already been altered. I will say also though, that the reason I did the low-lying long dormer was I wanted to continue that look, the historic look of the long horizontal lines. That was the purpose of the dormer, the shape of the dormer on the front of the house.
I think my concern was thinking of past garages that have come before us, that the existing garage is there, or there's photographs that it's a single story, and we didn't allow them to build a 2-story because it didn't meet the guidelines. This doesn't offend me, but I have a problem of trying to be consistent and follow the guidelines. So that was my concern.
Any others from the commission? Any other concerns, questions?
I just would echo the neighborhood's concerns that I don't feel it's appropriate to recommend or approve demolition without something approved to rebuild. So, you know, I don't know whether we're going to get there on the approval for the new garage or not, but if we do not, I would certainly not be in favor of moving forward with the demo.
Sure. So where do we want to take this one? Oh, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this one too?
I'm Randy Ice with the Heritage Hills and 119 Northwest 19th Street. You have our comments, our written comments. We do agree with the second part of the staff recommendation that we think this is too big. This is an increase in the footprint. If you look at this backyard, it's already very full, and any increase puts them over the guidelines at all. Even the exterior stairway will put them over the guidelines. The existing garage is functional, is being used, and there was a permission granted last year for repairing the garage. Okay, so we're a year away from a repair by this that was approved by this very commission. Finally, the owner is selling the house. A sign went up yesterday to sell the house. And so we really think this is not a good time to go ahead and approve this particular change.
I think that's fair. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure, I'm Matt Locke Jeffries. I just happen to be here for another matter. I own the house next door, so if you go back one or two, the stucco that we just finished a 18-month renovation. I don't have particular concern about the size of the garage. I will note what Randy just noted, that they're putting this on the market. I think originally the plan was to build a space for a babysitter, which I'm not sure the 1.5-story accomplishes that anyway. But the other thing, I do have a slight concern from our property. We're planning on staying there long term. There is in the redesign a window that looks out to the east, right? And that would be immediately looking out onto my pool that's about 10 feet away. So, you know, I can understand, I'll go along with whatever the commission says, but I just want to bring that up. So,
Great, thank you.
yeah.
This is a tough one. We've got neighborhood that's opposed to it. We've got a plan that's really close to, I think, being in compliance, but not quite there. Where do we want to take it?
I think for me, something that's really like bothering me is that there, to Randy's point, there was something approved for repair of this garage. So it was salvageable a year ago, and now suddenly it's not and can be torn down. It has had major alterations over the course of its lifespan, and that's certainly worth noting. But the reality is, I mean, it's hard for me to get there on a demo regardless of what is going in otherwise, especially if people are currently using it and parking in it.
We were, in the last meeting, approval. We did have approval for the demolition, and HPI agreed.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, demos don't usually feel very good, and they don't usually come easily. I don't know. I'm struggling with the demo and putting something back that's pretty different, but.
So we didn't provide authorization for demo in the last meeting, did we?
Sounds like we recommended a continuance.
Right.
It was continued, I guess, and we decided to continue because, just as Sarah mentioned, we didn't really want to say we're going to knock it down if we didn't know what we could build, right? But it was, on the last meeting, approved for demolition, and HPI did agree with us that there was not enough of the original structure, of the historic structure or the historic fabric that could be saved to be.
So I think one small point of clarification, it was recommended for approval, but not approved for
Sure.
demolition, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, I think we need a motion on this one when we're out of continuances.
I mean, can you speak
Pardon
at
me?
all on the owners putting this on the market? Because like if you demolish and then built what you're proposing, that's not like a 2 or 3 month turnaround, which is when you would expect them to be out of the house, assuming this sells quickly, which Heritage Hills it will. You know, do you know
So-
anything about that?
Interestingly enough, I was made aware of that this morning when I went to take a measurement. So, no, I did not know about that. I mean, I know of it now, but my job was to present this.
Sure.
So I'm not understanding where that goes, and I'm not understanding why I was left in the lurch like that, but I'm doing what I was asked to do.
So I can state that the CA stays with the property.
Right.
So and we've had this happen numerous times, that a property is in the midst of being sold or is on the market while someone is pursuing a CA, and the CA gets approved with one owner, and then a new owner comes in and completes the work. Now, a new owner may or may not want to complete the work as proposed here, but it would continue with the property regardless of if or when the house sells.
True. Also, they may not want to demo it either. So who's to know that? But also, it could a new garage that is more functional, and that, again, with the bathroom that adds to the side of the pool. I think that would probably the permission to build that would improve the sale price or the buyer's more of an incentive to purchase.
I just worry we would approve this, it gets demolished, and then we can't actually force them to follow through with part
build.
2 of the plan. They don't have to build anything in its place, even if we give approval. So then all of a sudden they've demolished something that's not going to get rebuilt.
Quite frankly, something that's, well, in theory, working at the moment, or at least holding a couple of cars at the moment.
So I want to just say that that is a concern that we have with every demolition that we see, but that is the case with every demolition we see. Every single time we allow someone to demolish a garage, we have no ability to force them to build anything back. We do not have an enforcement mechanism for that. So every time that we approve one of those, whether the property is up for sale, whether they're proposing something that we think is a good design or not, that demolition stands on its own. and they can demolish the structure and never build anything, or they can come back, numerous times with different iterations of a new structure. So not to say that's not a legitimate thing to be concerned about, but it's kind of beyond our ability to control.
But it still does seem to me like if they're in the process of possibly selling this, to be premature to make that decision for a potential another homeowner. I mean, if somebody's going through the process and coming, if it's their own home and they're bringing designs and they're, then that's what they're spending time and money on that. I think having another homeowner come in mid-process, it's not the same incentive to them to fulfill the CA.
Does that lead you towards a motion?
Something, too, though, if that sign had gone up tomorrow, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just caution, as the commission thinks about a motion and findings, who owns the property and whether or not it's for sale is not the commission's purview. People make all sorts of improvements to their home in anticipation of a sale, whether it's a new garage or remodeling the bathrooms or whatever that is. So whether the commission approves this, denies this, that needs to be based upon whether or not it meets our guidelines and regulations and not concerns about the status of the property and its sale.
So in the staff report, the height and massing of the proposed garage does not approximate the height and massing of existing. We know that. The dormers should not be located on the front-facing roof or visible from the street. Can you move the dormers so that they're not on the front-facing roof or visible from the street?
right. So that's where I come into what I was saying earlier. We had discussed in previous meetings, too, the expansion of the garage. It doesn't take up any more. That is already concrete. It doesn't take up any more hardscape or create any more greenscape. And the massing that we are talking about, I think, relates to the primary structure as well as the surrounding structures. I mean, if we were going to only go by massing, I know the garage across the street from here is also a one-story garage, and I know because I built it, and I got it approved, and I submitted things that I knew would be approved by the guidelines. I believe that in the massing of this, and including the dormers, because of the existing structure, it is a scaled-down version of the house, and I believe that that meets those guidelines.
So I think the challenge is that you might be fundamentally at odds with your beliefs as to what the commission believes as well.
Sure.
So the question that I've got is, one, it says dormers should not be located on front-facing roof. Can we get rid of the dormers? And the other part is it's going to be
Sure.
too big by a couple of feet. Can you shrink it into a couple of feet? Can you get it to where it fits within the guidelines so that we can
Sure.
approve with conditions?
Sure.
That's kind of where I'm.
Yeah. Now we get to the fact that we now know that it's for sale, and I don't know what they would want to do, if they would even want to continue it, so.
Is
but-
there even a way to do the exterior staircase and still have a fence around the pool as is required?
Well, the move-out is on this side of that fence, so yes, there's another, moving that fence. So there is a curb on the other side of this, on that barrier, the fence there, right? See, oh, no, it's further back there on the pool deck. Yeah, I know the fence does sit on the driveway part of it, so. But yes, the fence could be moved to, that same fence could be moved on to, just further on the deck.
And still have room to walk and navigate around the pool pretty easily?
It looks to me as yes.
I wanted to clarify one thing about the guideline regarding dormers that is cited in the staff report. That is a guideline that is under Section 3, which is for existing historic buildings, that new dormers should not be added on the front or street-facing elevations of existing historic buildings. We referenced that as kind of a benchmark for whether or not it was appropriate to add dormers on a new garage when you are approximating a historic garage that does not have dormers, but that provision that says must be located only on non-primary facades, that's kind of a binding statement, is specific to existing historic buildings.
So this would no longer be an existing historic building?
Right, so you all
Okay.
have a little more discretion than that to determine whether,
Okay.
and we have approved 1.5-story garages with dormers on the front in the past.
Well, that changes some things for me. To that end then, we're only over by a couple of feet. I don't see it as that big of an issue. That's where I would support, I guess.
So it's not actually changing the lot coverage if it's not replacing any greenscape, right?
Correct. The portion of the lot where it is being, where it's proposed to be constructed is already paved, so.
What do you guys think? We got to get a motion. It's time. Either approval or denial.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion for denial because I still don't think it meets the guidelines due to the massing and the height. So I'm happy to motion a denial for HPCA 22-00170 with the findings and the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, second by Commissioner, Wood. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay. That denial is passed by a vote of 6-1. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 2, HPCA 23-00014 at 110 Northwest 16th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Stephen Prentice for certificate of appropriateness to item 2, paint the brick and mortar building required. We do not have any, this was continued previously, we don't have any new information from the applicant, so we have recommended another continuance. I don't believe the applicant is present today, and I would suggest a continuance to the September 6th meeting, just to allow them time to respond to having been continued.
If they're not here, I move for
We check with the public real quick, since I forget that all the time. The one time I'm actually going to remember it. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this one? Okay. Sorry that. Commissioner Gaines, you're up.
Yeah, continuance to March 6th for HPCA 23-00014.
Do we have a second?
Well, I think it's September 6th, but I'll second it.
Is it? Okay.
All the men on this commission, they're
Moved by Commissioner Gaines, second by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Technicality.
All right, that continuance was passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 3, HPCA 23-00021 at 709 Northwest 16th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Moria and Kevin Muller for a certificate of appropriateness to 3, install porch railing elective. And staff had no concerns with this proposal. They have evidence on the brick of a historic railing having been there. The only reason it's not on the consent docket is that we needed to get some more accurate dimensions on the drawings of the porch railing. But other than that, we recommend approval.
Have you received those already?
No, we don't have
Okay.
those.
Excellent. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, I'm Maria. So just to clarify, my name is with an A, not with an O. But I go by Allie. So if you see Allie on 16th block, that's me. We bought the house 3 years ago, and we've been slowly but surely trying to make sure it goes back out of its ugly 70s metal siding, metal porch. And we want to work on the banister. Regarding the dimensions, I just first wanted to make sure that you guys were okay with the design. The design came from another house on 16th Street. So I just want to make sure you guys were right with the design before, getting too much into the dimensions. I know that Angela wanted to make sure the height was appropriate historically. So if you look at the banister, it looks like the banister used to go all the way up against where the rock met the brick. And that is 31 inches. That being said, the porch is a little bit saggy. So we're going to lift it. The restoration of the porch is replacing like 2 planks and just lifting it a little bit. So that should bring it to 30 inches tall, if that's okay with you guys.
Seems appropriate. Does that fit? 30 inches?
Yeah, I mean,
And-
provided dimensions are provided to staff, I have no issue with it whatsoever.
Oh, perfect. So I'll email
Yep,
those
if you'll
dimensions.
just update the drawings that we have, the kind of elevation drawings with the accurate dimensions on the railing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project?
Sorry?
I was asking if there are any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project too. Okay, it sounds like we've received everything we need. Do we have a motion on this one?
I will motion to approve HPCA 23-00021 with the agreed upon conditions that the applicant submit dimensions to staff.
Excellent. Moved by Commissioner Jordan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion was passed and approved with conditions. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, HPCA 23-00036 at 529 Northwest 19th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Jonathan Reinke, Living Spaces, for Amanda Sharp for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace back deck with back porch elective. The commission saw this once previously, and the roof of the deck was continuous with the roof of the existing addition, which was one of staff's concerns, that was a large mass extending off the rear of the house. The applicant has modified the roof form to lower the roof, lower the deck, and have it come off like a shed roof from the back of the house, which does in part address those concerns. Staff does remain concerned that the deck / proposed porch extends very deep into the backyard and comes close to the existing garage, just kind of creating a continuous space across this corner lot as you view it from the street. So we did recommend another continuance, and the applicant's present for any questions.
Okay, thank you. If you don't mind, please state your name and address for the record, and
Amanda Sharp, 529 Northwest 19th.
talk to us about some of the changes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And John Reinke, 2304 Northwest 26th, here to speak about the same thing. Okay, so the changes that we made, as noted, we changed it to more of a shed-type roof, dropped it below the extended eave there, and then ran it as shallow a pitch as we could. We also deleted the extended eave that would have expanded the apparent presence of the porch all the way around, including and most particularly towards the garage. So that coupled with a slight drop in the elevation of the decking itself, brought it to where we've minimized it pretty much as we can, while still being able to retain what we are trying to gain out of doing this in the first place. So
I think the big challenge that we're looking at is it looks like it's just going to be super close to that garage back there too. How far away is it? How does that appear when you guys are kind of drawing it out and everything?
we actually have some mock-ups. Mandy and her family actually did some work where they had poles and stretched tarps, and there we go. And this is actually a Photoshop of it, I believe. That's not the actual photograph of it, but that's pretty close to what the look would be. And there's the actual, so that's actually even better in terms of, that pole is a little janky, I'm afraid to say, but yeah, so that's a technical term. But you can really see that, at that height and pitch, it really isn't chewing up a lot of visual space there. And visually coming, looking straight at the garage, it's really not that far. I mean, really not that close.
And I'll say, we've got a good amount of space between. We're not adding anything to the deck. We're just bringing it out to the edge of the deck. Most of it, because it's not going to be that siding that you can see from the street from either side. It's going to be screens that you can see through. So you're gonna lose, now that we've got the roof down to a minimal, you're gonna lose that strip. But other than that, you should still be able to see kind of through the screen itself. And then we've got space on the other side of that deck. We have a flower bed, and then there are several strips of grass that you have to run the lawnmower over, and then we have another garden under the eave of the garage. So it's not a minimal space. There are two other houses on corners in the neighborhood, one at 900 Northwest 17th and one at 600 Northwest 18th. They both also have, when you look from the above view, they have about the same distance between roof line to roof line of house to garage that we would end up with, which is about 7, 8 feet. Ours is gonna be closer to 8. And those other two houses, which are also on the corner, end up being closer to 7, maybe 8. And there's actually don't have grass, even there's not really room to care about having grass. So we've minimized it about as much as we possibly can. But even having the tarp up, it provided, because the sun is, in the afternoon, is all over here where there aren't mature trees yet. You can see we've got a couple that they planted when they did the reno. But that provides shade. Other than that, in the summer, it's just brutal to be out there because, yeah, the kids, the sunscreen's at the back door.
Yeah.
Because there's just nothing there.
Well, I do agree that this new proposal looks quite a bit better from the street than just a continual kind of flat line. Definitely more in favor of this one than the last one. I still have concerns about the distance from the garage to the edge of this, but certainly a vast improvement. So
I tend to agree. I think, I mean, looking at it like that, that doesn't look as tight as I initially was picturing in my mind as well. So
yeah, the line of sight is improved by the roof form for sure.
yeah.
What is the roof material on that? Did it say in there?
The roof material, we'll just be using the same shingle material that defines the roof of the existing home.
Okay, and it's all screened in
Yeah,
all the way around? Okay, thanks.
yeah, and we went and found the the most translucent screen we could, for to provide the least interrupted sight lines as possible. So and that's actually defined in the original submittal.
Okay.
Looking for our site plan. Here we are. So it's a 13 feet. Yeah, it's 13 feet, not 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you
So,
go.
yeah,
I think that was with the overhang of.
yeah, yeah. With the
two
overhang,
coming away.
yeah, with the two overhangs chewing it up.
Yep.
Yeah, 13 feet is the actual footprint to footprint. So it's right at 11 feet when you talk about the eave of the garage to the to the hem skirt of the proposed porch. It
So
does say 8 feet, doesn't it?
Does say. Yeah, I don't know if that was the original or not. But it is, I don't know,
Yeah,
it
there's
feels
that.
much bigger than, there it says 13. But
Huh,
it feels much
breaking
bigger
dimensions.
than 8. Just because, again, we have 2 flower beds and, I think it's 3 or 4 passes of the lawnmower of grass that's in there. So I would have lined up the kids and put them head to toe to measure across, but resisted.
Yeah.
But
Pretty
it
sure-
is substantial.
I'm pretty sure the 13 is correct.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so, and not certain why the 8 made it on there, so.
So outside of the proposed changes with regard to the addition, it looks like we are still missing some documentation of roofing material, site coverage, and light fixtures. Can you clarify any of that while we have you here?
Yeah, well, the roofing material will be the standard shingle. It will match the shingle from the existing home. Yeah, so that's, yeah. I'm sorry, say again? Yes. Yeah, so I thought I actually iterated that in the other one, but I think I just said to match, so. Okay, so yeah, it will be an architectural grade shingle to match. And the light fixtures on the interior of the building, I don't think we'd selected it yet because we were, we talked about ceiling fans and a number of other things. when we had an eave on it, we were talking about doing some LED lighting on it, but obviously that's all been deleted. So,
We wouldn't review the interior fixtures of the porch, would we?
right, and we don't really have any exterior fixtures, anymore, because there was a light over the door for the screen door, but we no longer have an eave to put said light into. So currently, we don't have an exterior fixture.
Is that considered an exterior feature on a screened porch?
So, I have to think about that. If it's a screened-in porch, we do typically still look at things like a ceiling fan or light fixtures that are mounted on the exterior wall of the house. But I think all of those things are fairly simple, submit to staff kinds of items if this were to be approved.
Yeah.
And this doesn't increase the site coverage at all?
I think it does a site coverage. If you go back to the supplemental site plan, the coverages are there. I think it's like a less than 2%.
It goes from like 32 up to just below, or 31 and change up to 32 and change. It's not, we're still below a third coverage on the
Right.
lot.
Actually, I've got the site plan here. Stand by. Yeah, so the total coverage current is 31.89, and the coverage proposed is 32.61. So it's less than a single percentage of change. And that's really, where that comes from is actually, we're just extending the footprint of the porch to the east away from Dewey, where there was a garden that doesn't allow us to line up the edges of the buildings, so.
I think, go ahead. I was gonna say, I think I could support an approval with conditions on this one.
I think I
That's
could
where
too.
I'm at.
I appreciate the mock-ups.
We also need to hear from
I
citizens.
particularly like the tarp.
I don't think the
posts.
neighborhood association was in favor of the temporary tarp. So we would prefer something more permanent and classy.
So, and didn't Sarah say she walks by it every day, so, so.
Every day.
Let me just check in real quick. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Excellent.
I do just want to note that we do have a note from Mesta Parks supporting a continuance, so I just want to note that for everybody before we motion that they submitted that to staff.
All right, do we have a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion here?
I will motion to approve wherever we are. HPCA 23-00036 with the specific findings noted in the staff report and the agreed upon conditions that the applicant provide documentation on roofing, lighting, and it seems like we have the site coverage under control actually. So just the roofing and lighting to staff.
And I'll
Excellent.
second.
We can do that.
I'll second it.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that passed 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will move on to item number 5, HPCA 23-00044 at 621 Northwest 18th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus, Creative Home Design, for David DeWitt for certificate of appropriateness to 4, demolish first floor addition elective, and 5, construct 2.5-story addition elective. The commission has seen this previously with a couple of other items as well that were approved the last time. Staff has recommended approval of item 4, demolish first floor addition, with the just condition that that not proceed until they're ready to do the construction of the addition. We got a little wishy-washy on you all and gave you a recommendation to approve or continue the addition. It has been modified in response to many of the comments that were made at the previous meeting. The roof does remain the same height approximately as the historic structure and taller than a portion of the historic structure, but otherwise meets applicable guidelines as far as size, width, length, height, et cetera, and just general kind of compatibility with a historic structure.
And a note that the Neighborhood Association did concur with staff's So it can be either one, is what we know here. Whichever way we want to go, I think the neighborhood association is going to agree. Okay, so that being said, Fallon, talk to us about what you've changed last time to now, and hopefully you're prepared for this one, unlike the last one.
Yeah, God, you all stressed me out. Did you see me sweating back there after that? I'm so sorry. So I revised the addition to take off the dormer that we had on the rear. The client wanted a window facing out of the third floor, but it just, there were a lot of comments about it, so we took it off. I tried a couple of different arrangements, maybe like a shed roof, that sort of thing, to get the overall height of it below the ridge over there on the east side. I couldn't, so we just tied it in and made it look as cohesive as possible, but it's still lower than the main ridge of the house. So,
Can you talk to me about the skylight?
the skylight, yeah.
The skylight, is that instead of the dormer? I'm assuming they're
instead of
trying
the
to
dormer.
use
They
that
wanted,
space up there somehow?
yeah. They want some kind of natural light in that back corner of the attic.
What do the guidelines state about sky? I don't think we've had one since I've been on this commission.
We can
I don't think we do
administratively
either.
approve skylights on rear elevations, so the guidelines are good with
Okay.
with
No.
skylights where not visible.
I mean, it is a lot of house, but, it would be a dramatic improvement to the existing structure, so I could probably get behind an approval.
I think that's where my mind goes as well. Any other questions for the applicants from commission?
What was it about the
Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay.
We know the neighborhood agrees or disagrees.
Yep. Do we have a motion?
I will, let me pull up the actual staff report. I will motion to approve HPCA 23-0044.
00044.
With the specific findings noted in the staff report and the agreed upon conditions, which are, let's see. What is the revision that staff would like to?
Revisions to
I think it was
design.
documentation of the existing chimney, which I haven't sent in yet, but I did do it last
Oh,
week.
yeah, that was from the last meeting
Yeah.
too.
That was, I believe, there's a kind of generic condition, if you all were to ask for any changes to the design, that be submitted to staff.
Have you received the documentation about the chimney yet though? Because we did ask for that at
No,
the
I
last
did
one,
go
so-
take photos of it, and
Okay.
then I messed up my little app thing, and it totally, so I gotta go back.
But
So
we don't need to
I'll do it
include that
today.
anywhere in this packet since it was
Right, that
agreed
was
upon
part
at the
of-
last,
right,
correct?
that was part of
Okay.
another item that was
So
approved.
we'll just motion with the condition that any revisions to the design be brought to staff.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that motion carries it carries unanimously. Just did it again. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Fallon's next project, HPCA 23-00047 at 800 Northwest 16th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, again, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus, Jolly Bird Home Design, for Susan Key for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, convert garage to guest house elective, 2, construct garage elective, 3, install door and window elective, and 4, replace window at northwest corner to match the new window elective. So a couple things to clarify here. The commission saw this previously with a proposal to add essentially another garage in front of the historic garage. And that's kind of what is covered by item 1, convert garage to guest house. That item 1 really can be struck because at this point, everything that remains related to that item is captured in items 3 and 4. Right now, what the applicant has actually proposed is to install a door and window on the side of the garage facing into the yard and to replace a window on the side of the garage facing into the yard. Through discussion with the commission previously and through discussion with staff, the construction of a garage in front of the garage has evolved into what's proposed as a pergola in that location, no longer attached to the garage. Couple of remaining concerns for staff. The pergola is shown with wood slats on the side that kind of enclose it more than we would typically see on a traditional pergola. And then on the side of the garage, and this I think is one comment that's not captured thoroughly in the staff report. On the side of the garage where the windows and doors are proposed to change, we have a historic window that's there. I believe it's not a replacement window. And the proposal is to install a new window and replace the historic to match the new. We would generally prefer to see the new window match the historic window and the historic window be retained if possible. But those were kind of captures staff's thoughts on that. We did recommend a continuance on kind of those items collectively, but it may be something that through discussion with the commission can get closer to an approval.
Okay. Let's see, can you please state your name and address for the record, and then also talk to us about where we stand today?
Yes, Fallon Brooks, 733 Northwest 22nd. So on this one, so one of the things was there's two windows and a door that face on the north side that face the house. One of the windows is being lengthened, like dropped down. That's why it's being removed, and then we're putting that existing window in another location and then adding a door. So that's that part of it. And then as far as the garage, from the street, you'll still look like a garage. You know, we've talked about putting in some sort of a privacy gate so that most of that would not be visible from the street anyway. But the pergola was kind of the compromise, I suppose. So.
And so, quite frankly, there is something to be said about the compromise on the pergola. I think, you know, for me personally, the siding on it is a bit of a challenge because it becomes less of a pergola and more of a carport at that point. So the question that I've got is, are you comfortable removing the siding?
That's up to you.
Sammy Duncan, 800 Northwest 16th. I saw in the report that maybe a trellis would be preferable, and I'd be fine with that.
Trellis.
If that's, like a trellis design instead of the slats, and then maybe like a vine or something pretty could grow on it.
The other part to that too is the nice thing about the pergola, just I guess in looking at the project too, is that it's not going to be a situation where somebody's going to be demolishing a garage in a historic neighborhood. They're going to put a pergola up that could be easily taken down, and the garage could be converted back into a garage if the next homeowner wanted to do that at their own expense. So I'm not terribly opposed to the first when I looked at it, I thought this is kind of strange, and it's certainly haven't seen anything like this in the neighborhood, which, you know, may have us lean a certain way. But after thinking about it a little bit longer, and the fact that you're not going to be tearing down that garage, I think you're saving that. That's a good thing. And if we can get it to look less like a carport and more like a pergola, I think we can get there, or at least I can get there.
And we are mimicking this by an exact replica of something on 17th and Ollie that's been approved in the past, I suppose.
It's actually in the packet that you guys have on not the last page, I think it's the next to last page. It shows that as an example.
It does not have slats, correct?
It doesn't, the example does not, no.
Yeah, so I think that is, for me, what's making it feel like sort of this weird hybrid structure. I think if we could get to where it looks like a pretty pergola or arbor or something like that, it's preferable. I just had a couple of questions for clarity. On sheet A7, I think this is just an optical illusion, but on the number 2 proposed east elevation, so basically looking at it from Chartel, it looks like the roof line of the garage is extending over, and I just want to get absolute clarity that we are not talking about roofing it in any substantial, like we're just talking about a wooden pergola at the top.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there'd be no roof.
Oh, on A7? Yeah, sorry, no.
Okay, and so then could you tell me exactly, and I apologize if it's in here, you're very thorough and I may have lost it, exactly how far the edge of this pergola is from the edge of that garage?
4 feet.
Okay. I can definitely get there if we can agree to change the sides. I don't know if we want specific conversation or language about how those are changed, but for me, I could get there
We can leave this
with that change.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by the steps taken to compromise. I think it's definitely feels better than the original submission. And I'm not bothered by adding the doors on the other elevation. You know, it's not changing what you see from the street at all, so.
Which, sorry, when you said door, it just dawned on me, which direction does this gate go? Does it?
The gate faces east.
No, but like, where does it open, in or out?
Out to the street.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so if we just like add some specific language about replacing the slats with, you know, staff approved
Trellis.
pergola design or something, you know, then yeah, I'd be totally in favor of moving this along.
Katie, do you feel like we need specific language about how that trellis would look or anything?
I would like some direction from you all about what you're wanting to see. If the applicant's suggestion of trellis that they could then grow plant material on is what everyone would be in support of, then we could just include that.
For
Or if
me,
you have some other,
sorry.
oh, go ahead.
For me, it you know, anytime you're going to put something on the sides, it turns it into a carport. And I would encourage you not to put anything, at least on the side that faces the pool, maybe the side that faces the neighbor.
So you would say no sides whatsoever?
I would prefer no sides.
I can go that way too. I guess, what is the goal? Is the goal covered parking? And if it is, does this accomplish that if it's a pergola versus a carport? And if it doesn't accomplish it, it kind of makes me go, well, what's the point?
What's the point of building it all together? Yeah.
Mixed use, and then I think if you put something like a vine could grow on it for shade. But I'm okay with the trellis design that was on the page 15 of 15, number 6.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe do trellis like just up the posts on the corners essentially. Because I think the end goal here is to have some vines or other kind of foliage growing on it. And
Sure.
if we just have a bare post, then what you're looking at when you're sitting in the backyard is just the side of a couple of cars. This way it kind of makes that structure the primary thing that you're looking at and not, you know, these two cars sitting in there. So that, I think that's the goal, is just to kind of visually draw your eye away from the fact that it's cars.
I would also just like to add that the neighborhood is supporting a denial of the project.
Okay.
Which I would not personally be in favor of a denial. I think you have one more pass at a minimum, but
Sure.
I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Speaking of that, are there any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, excellent. What other concerns do we have from the commission's perspective? Anybody have any comments, thoughts on the siding portion of it?
I think the main thing for me is if it doesn't really accomplish covered parking, I don't feel inclined to move it forward just yet. But, you know, I get the notion of mixed use, but again, like, we're looking at this space that has a pool and has a garage and will have an ADU and has a deck, has a big front porch. So there's a lot of usable outdoor space that already exists, that we knew to exist, you know, before this ADU was proposed. So I kind of struggle with, like,
And maybe instead of us trying to design what the pergola sides look like, you guys take that back as a continuance and work on that and bring it to staff for approval, or bring it back to the commission for another round.
I think we can do that. Okay. Just curious though, as far as cover goes on the top of it, if we put like clear polycarbonate panels or even frosted ones that you can't see from the street, is that possible?
I don't know what the guidelines support in
I don't
that
know what the
particular
Katie?
scenario. Katie, do you know that off the top of your head?
Well, I would say that I believe many of our pergolas have those, whether that has ever been included in the CA or not. But I think we have done some administrative approvals for some kind of, no, we have, Angela's shaking her head at me. I don't think we have a guideline that specifically talks about that kind of a material being installed in the pergola. Pergolas are generally defined as being an open structure, that the roof is open.
But that could be a part of the next iteration too, from the design as well.
I would be fearful of it, like collecting leaf debris and twigs and branches, and the next thing you know, it's almost like this natural roof. You know? I don't know.
I mean, it would have a slope to it.
So it sounds like we're maybe leaning towards a continuance. Is that what I'm understanding?
I mean, do we need to continue the whole thing though, or can we approve, converting the garage? Because it doesn't seem like any of us have a problem with that, and we maybe just need a little more information on the pergola.
Works for me.
I don't think was the determination we don't have to approve converting the garage. It would just be the specific changes to the building.
Yeah, so item
Door
one
and window.
Yeah.
really can be struck, but then you could approve items 3 and 4.
Right.
And just continue item 2.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I can go ahead and make a motion to approve HPCA -23-00047, items 3 and 4.
Do we have a second? Any specific findings or anything that we need on that?
With the specific findings that additional information be submitted to staff if required.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Whitley, second by Commissioner Jordan.
So I have a question real quick. So the agenda that I have doesn't have item 3 listed. And so,
It's under item, well, maybe under, we missed it under item, yeah.
It's there, it's right under number 1, where it says installed door and
okay,
window
the number's
elected.
missing.
The number's missing.
Got you. Sorry.
Sorry, that second was Commissioner Jordan?
Commissioner Jordan.
Well, that's not it, but yeah. Yes, they're on the plan.
Okay, that item passes 6-1. Let's see.
And then I guess I will make a motion to continue HPCA -23-0047, item 2 to the, do you want this August meeting?
Next month's fine, I can give it in by Tuesday.
Okay. To the August 6th,
August 2nd.
2nd, sorry. We're all off with our dates today.
Had a motion, do we have a second? Was that on the
Oh, I can second.
Moved by Commissioner Whitley, second by Commissioner Milner. Continue. Okay, that also passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really? Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, HPCA 230074 at 911 Northwest 19th Street. Is the applicant present?
So this is Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Matlock Jeffries for David DeWitt for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct new house with mechanical equipment and porches, elective. 2, construct new detached 2-car garage, elective. 3, construct new driveway to back alley, elective. 4, remove existing front driveway and sidewalk, elective. 5, construct new sidewalks at front and rear elevations, elective. And 6, construct new front and rear fences, elective. And staff really had no notable concerns with this application. We've recommended approval with unique circumstances, and we essentially have it on the docket for individual consideration and not the consent docket because it is total new construction, and it's the first time you all have seen it, so we just wanted to make sure it got your eyes on it, but.
Sounds like you nailed it.
Fingers crossed.
I don't think that's ever happened, ever in the history of historic preservation where somebody
And from a
staff recommends approval
non-architect even, right?
on a complete new build. I'm shocked.
I'm happy.
Yeah. What do we want to do with this one? Do we have, so.
Well, we
Mesta
probably
Park-
need to let him.
Yeah, maybe. Mesta Park agreed with the staff's recommendations, so I mean, that's definitely a good thing. What do you want to tell us? Don't tell us anything that'll make us change our mind.
So I'm Matlock Jeffries. I
yeah.
live at 1601 Classen. You already know, we saw my house earlier. We are hopefully long-term permanent residents of Heritage Hills, looking to move my mom, who's a primary caregiver for our 13-month-old, close to our current house. This is one of the only existing lots left. Can't find a small house that's not, one of the massive houses in Heritage Hills. So that's what we want to build, basically.
Okay.
Good job.
Thanks.
Any questions?
I mean, I looked at the application earlier, and A, was very impressed at how thorough it was. And B, it is very rare that the commission would have no design change requests on a first pass. I feel like there's always something. And I thought this was very fitting contextually and historically, and I have zero problems with any of this. And
I think the only comment was that it looks too much like a historic home. Isn't it? And it's
Well, you know,
did a job.
the archetype for this house, just on the other side of Francis, there are 3 right in a row, basically, that are single-story hip roof with a faux dormer that I tried to make this house look just like that. So,
Nice.
Well, if there are no citizens to be heard, I'd
Citizens,
be
are there any citizens that wish to be heard? Mother, would you like to speak? Okay.
Well, I would motion to approve, let's see, HPCA 23-00074 with the unique circumstances and specific findings noted in the staff report.
We have a second.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan. I'm going to give this one to Commissioner Whitley. Go ahead and vote in PrimeGov, please.
take it.
Okay.
Thank you.
There we go. It's passed. 7-1, or 7 unanimously. Not 1. Jeez. Okay. Let's go to item number 8, HPCA 23-00078 at 300 Northwest 17th Street.
Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Brent Wall Laud Studio for Philip Booth Jr. for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, install stone landscape edging elective, 2, install decomposing granite walkway elective, and 3, install arbor elective. This is a proposal to install an arbor along the side of the house that will be visible from the street. Typically, we don't support those types of landscape features in a visible, prominent location like this, but in this case, we felt that the effort to preserve and support the wisteria that's historic to the house was a unique circumstance justifying the proposal for the arbor. It's a removable, reversible feature and is compatible with the architecture of the house. So staff has recommended approval of all items with unique circumstances.
Hi there. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Megan Phelan, I'm here for Brent Wall.
Excellent.
220 Northwest 13th Street, Suite 1.
Perfect. Is there anything that we need to discuss on this particular project, or do we like it as is?
I think it's very pretty. I like it like it is.
I just had one quick question, one thing I wanted to verify. You know, there's quite a bit of rolling terrace in the front, and it is hard to tell from the site plan exactly where that hit. So I just wanted to make sure, you know, that there's not any regrading and that's not changing or anything with the decomposed granite path.
No,
Okay,
no,
perfect.
not at all.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to check.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious, how do you know that wisteria is historic to the house? Just like past photographs, or?
Well, I think for one thing, at one point, I believe the wisteria was attempting to eat the house. And they actually went through quite a bit of effort to protect the house from the wisteria. So that's part of it is moving it over. But just from and Angela, you might be able to speak to this better than I can because you've worked with the applicant more, but the size of it, you can tell by just the maturity of the plant.
You can tell to some degree based on the maturity of the plant, but not necessarily these, I don't think, because they've been cut down so many times that we don't have any full trunks. My approximation is based on the fact that I've been here nearly 30 years and it's had wisteria since I came here. But other than that, yes, it was eating beneath the stucco, it was into the porch, it was coming through the floor between the 2 stories. They've had to replace that entire side, inside and out, in order to keep the wisteria out of it. And normally, wisteria will take down a house. Most definitely it will take down a house, but it usually takes a little while for it to do it. So to protect the existing landscape as well as the historic dwelling, it seems like a compromise.
Yeah.
So you're
you may not agree
committed
to.
to maintaining that the wisteria doesn't continue to engulf the house and destroy it I'm guessing. You'll keep the wisteria maintained.
Well, she won't live there, but I bet the
Well,
Buseys will commit to maintaining it.
Yes, the idea is that the wisteria will be trained to grow over the arbor as opposed to using the house.
Okay, yeah, because that was my fear, is how
Yeah.
it can take over and destroy your structure.
Yeah, I mean, since it's already existing, it seems like this is better than it was. It's very pretty.
Yep. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Hearing none, that's wonderful. Do we have a motion that we want to make on this one?
I will motion to approve HPCA 23-00078 with the unique circumstances and specific findings noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Whitley. Please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, passes unanimously. I'm not even going to read the numbers this time. All right, that takes us through our cases for individual consideration. That takes us to item number 7. Looks like we have no other business. Item number 8, under communication and reports. So we've got 15 items that were under the administrative approval section. Do we need to do anything with that? No? Nothing under withdrawals, nothing under administrative closing. I'm not showing anything under city council news.
Nope, nothing to report on any of the other boards, commissions, committees.
Rita, anything from the municipal councilor's office?
No.
Okie dokie. We will move on to next meeting date. Next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, August 2nd at 2 p.m. right here in Municipal Building City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting were received July 3rd. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, July 11th. The next regularly scheduled historic preservation workshop is on Wednesday, September 13th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street in Suite 900. Are there any items from commissioners that we want to share or discuss today? Excellent. Any citizens that wish to be heard? There are none in the room. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.